Have you ever had one of those days where you felt like the world was moving around you, but not for you? As if everything was happening to you and you were just a bystander watching it all unfold. Maybe it was when you faced a difficult challenge at work, or maybe it was something more personal, like trying to hold yourself together through the loss of someone you love. In those moments, it's easy to feel small, as though your presence is inconsequential. Well, let me ask you that. In the very moment when you felt the smallest, you were actually tapping into a source of strength that many people never discover. What if I told you that strength isn't always about standing tall with your shoulders back and your chest out, but sometimes it's about just standing up? What if strength means allowing yourself to sit with your pain, to feel every bit of it, and then quietly saying to yourself, I will get through this? What if strength means looking in the mirror and saying, yes, I am struggling, but I'm still here? And that is enough. So often we think of strength in terms of force, muscles flexed, fists clenched. But isn't it possible that real strength, the kind that truly shapes lives, is something quieter, something that doesn't demand to be seen, but reveals itself in the way we keep moving forward, even when no one is watching? What does strength really mean to you? Is it the ability to power through challenges without showing a single crack in your armor? Or is it having the courage to acknowledge those cracks and still continue on? We live in a world that praises the outward displays of strength, achievements, accolades, and trophies. But when was the last time we stopped to appreciate the strength it takes to simply keep going day after day? I remember a story about a young woman I met at one of my events. She was a single mother, working 2 jobs and raising her child without any support. By society's standards, she didn't fit the conventional image of strength. She wasn't running marathons or climbing mountains. She didn't have medals to show or stories of grandeur to tell. But what she did have was something infinitely more valuable: resilience. Each morning she got up prepared. Each night, after a long day of work, she would sit with her son and read to him before bed, no matter how tired she was. And when she spoke to me, she didn't talk about her exhaustion or her struggles. She talked about the joy of seeing her son's eyes light up during story time. She didn't realize, but in every word she said, I could see the immense strength it took for her to show up, to love, and to hope. You see, her strength wasn't in lifting heavy weights or breaking records. It was in lifting her head high each day, in facing her reality with courage, and in finding beauty in the small moments. That, my friends, is inner strength. It's a quiet power that moves us forward when we have a reason to stay still. It's the force that whispers one more time. Just try one more time. So, let's rethink what strength means. It's not about how hard we can hit, but how hard we can get hit and keep moving forward. It's not about avoiding pain, but being willing to experience it, learn from it, and grow through it. Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling that fear, acknowledging it, and choosing to take a step anyway. When was the last time you recognized your own strength? Have you ever paused to give yourself credit for getting through that tough week, or for staying calm in the midst of chaos? Have you ever thanked yourself for showing up for your family, your friends, or even just for yourself, when it would have been so much easier to withdraw and hide away? What I want you to see is that inner strength is not some unattainable state. It's not reserved for the fearless or the brave. It's already within you. It's the breath you take after receiving bad news and choosing to go on with your day. It's the tears you cry in the dark, knowing that tomorrow, somehow, you'll find the strength to smile again. It's the quiet decision to keep moving forward, even when every fiber of your being wants to stop. Take a moment and think about a time when you felt completely overwhelmed. Perhaps it was during a difficult transition, like moving to a new city, starting a new job, or ending a relationship. Do you remember the uncertainty? Now, think back to how you handled it. Maybe you didn't feel strong at the time, but you did what needed to be done. You faced the unknown, and you made it through. That, right there, is inner strength. It's easy to dismiss our own resilience, because it often doesn't look or feel like strength when we're in the midst of struggle. We see it in others more clearly because we're not clouded by their doubts and fear. But the truth is, you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Every small act of courage, every decision to keep going, no matter how insignificant it seems, builds up your inner strength. And so I challenge you to redefine what strength means in your own life. The next time you feel overwhelmed, instead of asking yourself, why am I not strong enough? Ask yourself, what is this challenge teaching me about my own strength? Instead of thinking, I wish I was as strong as them, consider, what small steps have I taken today that reflect my own courage? Inner strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about being able to pick up the pieces and start again. It's about recognizing that it's okay to fall apart sometimes, because falling apart is part of the human experience. What matters is what you choose to do after you collected yourself. What matters is the decision to stand back up, to try again, and to keep going, no matter how long it takes. So today, I want you to acknowledge the strength you've shown, not just in the grand gesture, but in the everyday moments. Appreciate the courage it took to speak up when you were afraid, to reach out when you felt lonely, or simply to get out of bed when the weight of the world felt too heavy. That is your inner strength. That is the power that's been within you all along. Embrace it, honor it, and let it guide you forward. What comes to your mind when you hear the word strength? Do you picture someone standing tall with muscles bulging and a fierce look of determination? Maybe you think of someone in a position of power, a leader, a CEO, or someone who has influence and authority over others. That's how society often defines strength, isn't it? It's portrayed as dominance, as being in control, as holding power over others. But what if I told you that this idea of strength is more myth than reality? We've been conditioned to see strength as something external, something that can be measured by what we can do or what we can achieve. We praise those who stand at the top, who appear invincible, who seem untouched by fear or doubt. But have you ever noticed how often those very people who seem to embody strength on the outside are struggling on the inside? We hear stories about individuals who seem to have it all: success, recognition, power, yet they feel empty, lost, and in many cases, broken. Could it be that what we see as strength is only a shadow of the real thing? Think back to history. So many empires were built on the foundation of strength, armies, conquest, domination. But where are they now? The Roman Empire, once the epitome of strength and power, is no longer standing. All the wealth, all the might, and all the grandeur crumbled. Why? Because the strength that is based on external power is fragile. It can be chipped away, eroded, and eventually destroyed. Real strength doesn't need to shout, conquer, or command. It doesn't need to impose itself on others. It's much more subtle, much more enduring. You might be wondering, if strength isn't found in dominance, then where is it? The answer lies in places we often overlook: in the quiet endurance of a person who faces hardship with grace, in the unyielding hope of someone who holds on to their dreams, despite countless setbacks, and in the steadfastness of an individual who chooses love over hate, forgiveness over resentment. These forms of strength don't make headlines, but they transform lives, shape communities, and impact generations. There's a story that comes to mind, a story that illustrates this contrast between the myth of external strength and the reality of inner resilience. During World War II, there were countless accounts of soldiers on both sides displaying bravery and valor. They were celebrated for their courage on the battlefield, and rightly so. But there was one person who wasn't on the battlefield, whose quiet strength has inspired countless people ever since. Her name was Anne Frank. Anne was just a young girl hiding in an attic, completely powerless in the face of the war raging around her. She had no influence, no control, no means to defend herself or her family. And yet, in her diary, she wrote words of hope, of love, of dreams for a future beyond the horrors of war. How many people in her position would have been able to muster the strength to write, in spite of everything? I still believe that people are really good at heart. That's not a display of weakness. That's true, unshakable strength. Anne's strength didn't come from physical power or the ability to dominate her circumstances. It came from the deep well of resilience within her. She had a choice to make, to give in to despair or to hold on to hope. And she chose hope. That's where true strength resides. In the choices we make in the face of adversity, the strength to keep believing, to keep loving, to keep hoping. These are the forces that sustain us when everything else falls apart. So, let's challenge our own perceptions of what strength really means. Let's stop equating strength with being invulnerable or invincible. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about how many times you get back up. It's not about never feeling fear. It's about continuing forward despite that fear. True strength isn't loud. It's quiet. It's steady. It's in the parent who sacrifices their own dreams to support their child. It's in the friend who stays by your side when everyone else walks away. It's in the individual who faces a day of uncertainty and pain but chooses to get out of bed anyway. Now, some of you might be thinking, this all sounds good in theory, but how do I know if I have this strength within me? The answer is simple. You do. You already have it. You've had it all along. Find back to the times in your life when you faced challenges, moments when you felt like you couldn't go on, but you did. When you thought, this is too much for me, but somehow you found a way through. That's inner strength at work. It's not something you have to search for or acquire. It's something you need to recognize and nurture. Remember, strength doesn't always look like strength. It's not always a display of force or might. It's often quiet, almost invisible. It's the soft persistence that keeps you going when it would be easier to give up. It's the patience to endure when you don't have on. It's the choice to be kind, even when the world is unkind to you. This kind of strength doesn't fade away with time. It grows, deepens, and becomes a part of who you are. You see, the myth of external strength tells us that we have to be something we're not. Unbreakable, fearless, larger than life. But true strength is about being exactly who you are, embracing your flaws and vulnerabilities, and still choosing to move. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that you can keep going. It's not about the battles you fight with others, but the battles you win within yourself. So let's redefine strength. Let's see it for what it truly is. The resilience to keep loving after heartbreak, the courage to keep dreaming after failure, the willingness to keep showing up after rejection. Strength is the person who, despite losing everything, still believes in the goodness of life. It's the one who, despite feeling broken, chooses to heal. Strength isn't about how much you can carry. It's about what you do when life feels too heavy to bear. And when we embrace this understanding of strength, when we see it not as dominance but as endurance, not as power but as grace, we start to see it everywhere, in ourselves, in each other, and in the world around us. We start to realize that strength doesn't have to look a certain way. It just has to be. So, the next time you're tempted to think of yourself as weak because you don't fit society's image of strength, remember this: strength is already within you. It's in every breath you take when you're tired, every step you make when you're unsure, and every word you speak when you're afraid. It's not about being unbreakable. It's about being willing to pick up the pieces and keep going. Strength isn't what we think it is. It's so much more. And it's time we all started seeing it for what it truly is, a quiet, unyielding force that keeps us moving forward, one step at a time, even when the path is difficult and uncertain. That's where true strength lies, deep within, where it's always been, waiting for us to notice. We spend so much of our lives looking outward, waiting for someone to tell us that we're strong, that we're worthy, that we're good enough. We chase after achievements, approval, recognition, hoping they'll fill that space inside us, hoping they'll silence the doubts we carry. What happens when we cease to look outward for affirmation and start searching inward for it? When we look outward, we're placing our value in the hands of others. We let other people's opinions define our worth. If they say we've succeeded, we feel successful. If they say we've failed, we feel defeated. And in that endless cycle of seeking and validation, we lose sight of the fact that the most important voice, the only voice that truly matters, is our own. Think back to a time when you faced a difficult moment. It might have been when you pushed through a setback, handled criticism, or stood your ground when it would have been easier to give in. Did anyone notice? Did anyone tell you, wow, you really showed strength in that moment? Chances are probably not. But does that make your strength any less real? Does the absence of someone else's praise diminish the courage it took to stand firm, to keep believing in your... No, it doesn't. And that's because true strength doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It's not something that anyone can bestow upon you. It's already yours. It's woven into your very being, waiting to be recognized and embraced. But for that to happen, we have to turn inward. We have to look at ourselves, our experiences, our struggles with kinder eyes. Imagine, if you will, a tree standing alone in the midst of a storm. Its branches are swaying wildly, the wind is howling, and its leaves are tearing away. On the surface, it might seem as though the tree is at the mercy of the storm, about to be uprooted. But what's really keeping that tree standing isn't its branches or its leaves. It's the roots that run deep beneath the ground. It's the solid foundation that holds firm even when everything above seems to be in chaos. Our inner strength is like those roots. It's not flashy or outwardly visible. It doesn't call attention to itself, but it's there, sustaining us through life's storms. And just like the tree bends and sways to avoid being broken, our inner strength helps us to be flexible and resilient. It's not about resisting every gust of wind that comes our way, but learning to adapt, to move with grace, and to remain grounded. When we acknowledge our own strength, when we recognize that even if no one else does, we begin to free ourselves from the need for external validation. We start to realize that we're not defined by what others see or say about us. We're defined by what we know to be true within ourselves. We're defined by the inner resilience that has carried us through our darkest days, by the unwavering hope that has kept us dreaming, and by the quiet determination that has pushed us forward step by step. So, I invite you to take a moment, think about the times in your life when you've shown strength, even if it felt like weakness at the time. Maybe it was deciding to leave a toxic situation, even though you feared what lay ahead. Maybe it was choosing to forgive someone, not for their sake, but for your own peace of mind. Or maybe it was simply showing up each day, doing what needed to be done, even when your heart wasn't in it. There's a story I once read that illustrates this beautifully. It's about a young warrior who had to face an old, fearsome giant to prove her courage. The giant stood at the entrance to the warrior's village, towering and terrifying, with a roar that could shake the ground. Every day, the warrior would stand at a distance, frozen by the sight of the giant, listening to its threats. "If you try to pass, I will crush you," the giant would bellow. "You're too weak to defeat me." One day, the warrior, trembling with fear but tired of feeling powerless, took a step forward. The giant roared louder, but she kept going. With each step she took, the giant seemed to shrink a little. By the time she reached the giant, she was looking down at it. This once enormous beast that now seemed no bigger than a child. She realized then that the giant's strength wasn't real. It was only as big as the power she gave it. And when she stopped giving it power, it became nothing more than a shadow that vanished with a single breath. What can we learn from this story? That fear often appears insurmountable, but it's really just an illusion, one that loses its form when we confront it. The voice of doubt and fear that tells you you're not strong enough, not capable enough, is only as strong as the attention you give it, not the truth of who you are. It's a barrier standing between you and your truth. And every time you take a step toward it, every time you question it, it starts to shrink. Every time you decide to act in spite of it, it loses its hold. Fear's greatest weapon is the fear of being faced. It's not our strength that's in question, it's our perception of it. When we believe we're weak, fear becomes larger than life. But when we decide to move forward anyway, even with trembling hands and racing hearts, we start to see fear for what it truly is. Some that's afraid of us realizing our own power. You've probably faced many moments like that in your life. It's times when fear and doubt seemed overwhelming, when you were tempted to turn back or give up, and yet you didn't. You took that first step, that tiny, seemingly insignificant step, and fear began to lose its shape. That's because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. It's saying, I hear you, fear, but I'm not letting you decide what I do next. When you confront your doubts, You're not pretending they don't exist. You're acknowledging them and choosing not to let them define your actions. You're telling yourself that it's okay to feel uncertain, to feel afraid, but that doesn't mean you're incapable or unworthy. It means you're human. And being human is not a weakness. It's a source of immense strength because it means you have the capacity to grow, to adapt, and to face whatever comes your way. So, the next time doubt whispers in your ear, the next time fear casts its shadow, remember that it's only powerful because you're giving it power. Turn to it. Look at it. Ask it what it's so afraid of. Is it afraid that you'll succeed? Is it afraid that you'll realize just how strong you really are? Because the truth is, you are strong. You've shown it in so many ways, in moments both big and small. Recognizing that strength isn't about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about seeing it for what it really is. A shadow that recedes when you take a step forward. Each time you face your fears, each time you stand up to your doubts, you're uncovering the courage that's been there all along. You're reclaiming the power that's yours to begin with. But once you've faced one fear, once you've walked through one doubt, you realize something incredible, that you're capable of facing more, that what once seemed impossible is within reach, that your courage grows with each step you take until one day you look back and wonder why those fears seemed so daunting in the first place. Fear and doubt will always be a part of our lives, but they don't have to control us. We can face them, we can walk through them, and in doing so, we don't just diminish fear, we illuminate our own strength, our own courage, and our own capacity to rise above whatever challenges come our way. So when fear stands in front of you, when doubt tries to make you question your path, take a deep breath. Take that first step, no matter how small, because fear isn't nearly as powerful as you are. And you're stronger than you know, stronger than even fear wants you to believe. Think about the many roles we play in our lives. At work, we may be the diligent employee, always reliable and composed. With friends, we may be the easygoing one, the person who keeps the mood light and laughter abundant. With family, we may be the peacemaker, the one who smooths over the rough edges and keeps things running smoothly. It's as if we're constantly changing masks, swapping one for another depending on the expectations around us. But underneath all those layers, who are you really? That question can feel intimidating, can't it? Because it asks us to peel back those masks, to set aside the roles we've been playing for so long, and confront our truest self. And the truth is, we've been conditioned to believe that wearing these masks makes us strong, that fitting in, meeting expectations, and avoiding vulnerability keeps us safe. But I want to pose a different perspective to you today. What if strength doesn't lie in hiding who you are, but in embracing your true self, flaws and all? What if authenticity is where true courage begins? Let's take a moment to think about what it means to be truly authentic. It's not about sharing every thought or revealing every aspect of your life to everyone you meet. Authenticity is about being honest with yourself and others, about what you feel, what you value, and who you are. Without apology, without shrinking yourself down to make others comfortable. It's standing firm in your truth, even when it's easier to mold yourself into what you think others want. Now, that's not always easy. It's much simpler to wear a mask, to blend in, to say what people want to hear. But living like that creates a sense of emptiness because deep down, the version of yourself you're presenting isn't the whole picture. There's more to you than what others see, more than what you allow yourself to express. Have you ever wondered why it takes so much energy to pretend, to hold up those facades? It's because maintaining them goes against your very nature. It's like trying to keep a beach ball submerged underwater. It takes a lot of effort. And the moment you let go, it shoots back up, being yourself. On the other hand, is effortless because it's your natural state. It's the way you were meant to. But being authentic also requires vulnerability. It means showing the world not just your strengths, but your insecurities and fears. It means saying, this is me, imperfect human, real. That's where the courage lies. Because to be vulnerable is to risk judgment, rejection, and criticism. And yet, it's in that space of vulnerability that real connection happens. It's where we find the strength to live fully and freely without the burden of pretending. There's a story about a sculptor who was tasked with creating a grand statue from a massive block of marble. Day after day, people would pass by and see the sculptor chipping away at the stone. One day, someone asked, "What are you doing? This is just a big unshapely rock. How will it ever become anything beautiful?" The sculptor smiled and said, "I'm not creating anything new. The statue is already inside. I'm simply removing what's not." That's what authenticity is like. It's not about becoming something different. It's about removing the layers that aren't really you. The expectations, the personas, the facades, so that your true self. And that's a courageous act because it means letting go of what you think you should be and accept. But why is it so powerful? Why does embracing our true self give us strength? Because when you stop pretending, you free yourself from the fear of being found out. When you're authentic, there's no worry that someone will see through you because there's nothing to see through. What people see is what they get. And that, my friends, is liberating. It's grounding. Authenticity also allows you to stand firm in your decisions and actions. When you're true to yourself, you're not swayed by what others think. You don't have to seek approval or validation because you're living according to your own values and truth. That inner alignment gives you the strength to face whatever comes your way. Because your confidence isn't based on the changing tides of external opinion. It's rooted in the unshakable foundation of who you are. What strength lies in authenticity? Does it not take more courage to be oneself than to hide behind a facade? To say, "This is me, and I'm okay with that." Society often tells us that strength is about being tough, invulnerable, impenetrable, but I believe true strength is found in the softness of authenticity. It's found in the willingness to show up as yourself, even when it's hard, even when you're unsure of how you'll be received. When we're authentic, we inspire others to do the same. Think about the people in your life who you admire most. Chances are it's not because they're perfect or always have it all together. You admire them because they're real. They have the courage to be who they are, to own their mistakes, to speak from the heart. And that realness, that willingness to be seen, is what draws us in. It's what makes us trust them, connect with them, and want to be around them. Imagine how different your relationships would be if everyone showed up as their true selves. If, instead of hiding behind masks, we allowed ourselves to be seen for who we really are. Imagine the depth of connection, the understanding, and the support we'd expect. That's the gift of authenticity. It creates a space where we can be fully present, where we can give and receive love and acceptance without pretense. But authenticity isn't just about our relationships with others. It's about our relationship with ourselves. When we embrace who we are, we stop the endless cycle of self-criticism and comparison. We stop trying to measure up to some unrealistic standard. We start to appreciate our own uniqueness, to see ourselves not as flawed, but as whole. And that acceptance, that self-compassion, becomes a source of immense strength. What knots have you been wearing? What parts of yourself have you been hiding or suppressing because you thought they weren't good enough or because you feared they wouldn't be accepted? And more importantly, what would it feel like to let those masks go? To stand in the light of your own truth and say, "This is me." It might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel like stepping into uncharted territory. But I promise you, there's a power in that space, a power that comes from aligning with your true self, from letting go of what no longer serves you. Because when you're authentic, you're not just living, you're thriving. You're experiencing life with an open heart, with courage, and with the strength to handle whatever comes your way. Authenticity doesn't make life easier. It doesn't shield you from pain or disappointment, but it does make life richer, more meaningful. It gives you the strength to face challenges with grace because you know you're standing in your truth. It allows you to build deeper connections because you're showing up as your whole self. And it gives you the freedom to pursue your path, not because it's what others expect, but because it's what resonates with your soul. So embrace who you are, celebrate your quirks, your imperfections, your unique perspective, because there's strength in being real. in showing up not as who you think you should be, but as who you truly are. That's where true courage lies. And that's where you'll find the power to create a life that's not just successful, but deeply fulfilling. Each of these facets is a piece of a larger mosaic, one that paints a picture of the unshakable strength that lies within every single one of us. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And it's there not because of our circumstances or our achievements, but simply because we exist. If you truly believe in your own strength, what could you achieve? Take a moment and really think about that. Imagine what it would be like to move through life with an unshakable belief in your own power. Imagine making decisions from a place of self-assurance, facing challenges with unwavering confidence, and speaking your truth without hesitation. What kind of life would you create? What kind of impact could you have on the world around you? The answer, I think, is limitless, because when we fully embrace our inner strength, we're no longer held back by doubts, fears, or the opinions of others. We are free to be who we are meant to be, to give the best of ourselves, and in doing so, we not only transform our own lives, but also inspire those around us to do the same. It's like a pebble dropped into a still pond. The ripple it creates seems small at first, just a tiny disturbance on the water's surface. But watch as those ripples extend outward, growing wider and reaching farther than we could ever have imagined. That's what happens when you embrace your inner strength. Your confidence, your courage, your authenticity, it ripples out, touching everyone you meet, influencing everything you do. So often we wait for permission to shine. We wait for the right circumstances, the right people, or the right time. But the truth is, you don't need permission from anyone to embrace your strength. You don't need a stamp of approval to stand in your own power. It's there, within you right now, waiting to be claimed. And yes, there will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you feel like giving up, when the world seems to be pushing back against you. But remember that inner strength doesn't mean never feeling weak or never stumbling. It means choosing to rise every time you fall. It means having the patience to keep going, even when progress seems slow. It means knowing that strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about being able to rebuild and grow, even when you feel broken. So ask yourself, what could I achieve if I truly believed in my own strength? What relationships could I strengthen? What goals could I pursue? What dreams could I bring to life? As you ponder these questions, I want to encourage you to start small. Maybe it's a single act of courage, speaking up in a situation where you'd normally stay silent. Maybe it's showing kindness in a moment of frustration, or choosing patience when everything in you wants to rush. Every one of these small acts is a testament to your inner strength. It's in those moments that you build the foundation of a strong and resilient self. And it's not just about what you can do for yourself. When you stand in your strength, you become a source of light and encouragement for others. Think about how different the world would be if everyone believed in their own power. How much more compassionate, understanding, and hopeful would it be? When we embrace our strength, we give others permission to do the same. We become examples of what's possible when we choose courage over fear, authenticity over pretense. This is how true change happens, one person at a time, embracing their strength and inspiring others to do the same. It starts with you here now, deciding that you are worthy of the strength you hold within, deciding that you don't need to wait for some magical moment to start living fully and authentically. That moment is here. The choice is yours, and the power is within you. I know that embracing inner strength isn't always easy. It's a path that requires self-reflection, resilience, and at times vulnerability. But I promise you, it's worth it. Because the more you cultivate your strength, the more you'll see it in every aspect of your life. You'll handle setbacks with grace, face fears with courage, and live with a sense of peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you have the power within you to rise. As we conclude, I want to leave you with this: you are stronger than you realize. There is a reservoir of strength, courage, and resilience within you that's just waiting to be tapped into. You don't need to go looking for it somewhere. You don't need to wait for someone to hand it to you. It's already there, inside you, as much a part of you as your breath or your heartbeat. So go out into the world with that knowledge. Stand tall in your strength. Be the person who rises after every fall. Be the one who, when faced with doubt, chooses courage. And know that with every small act of strength, you are not only transforming your own life, but also contributing to a world that's a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, and a little bit stronger.